This is 30 Days to the Deal. It's the only show where Canadians get live results. And so if you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm Ben Humble. I'm your host. Here's what we've done so far. We have picked our market. We have picked our buy box. We have started to get leads. We've started to make calls. We've also started to get offers submitted and even accepted. And so coming back, we are excited for the next couple of weeks in this challenge. We have about 2.5 weeks left, and we're making real progress. In fact, not only are we making progress on the call, but I want to highlight some of the students who are making progress off of the call. We have our guys at the Deal House. And so here's what they're doing. They're working, y'all. They're working. I often get this question from people like, what would you do if you could start all over again? And I would say the same thing. I'd work very, very hard and build the skills. And so these guys are building the skills. And in fact, we actually have some great news. Even before they started really getting aggressive on the phone, one of the real estate agents that we've worked with out here started blowing up our phone yesterday. She's like, I really have a property. I have to sell it today. And so hopefully a little bit later today, we're going to bring on one of our Deal House students who's going to do a live negotiation on a property that we're trying to close on. I think it's going to be epic. What do you guys think? It's day number 12. Let's jump into our lesson of the day before we jump into our breakout rooms and start working. Here we go. Real estate is a sales and marketing business. And so what does that mean for us? That means that for most people, they make real estate about the property. And as you saw in our recap, my experience over the last 300 plus properties that I've purchased, and I've raised over $40 million of non-bank financing, it's because I realized that real estate in the digital age is a sales and marketing business. Very, very simple. Sales and marketing is about people. And so today I'm going to give you a micro lesson on how to gain an advantage in dealing with people in this business. When we talk to people, the first thing we have to do is qualify the person in front of you. And so when we qualify if you're calling direct to market, meaning on the MLS, mls.ca or .com, realtor.ca, realtor.com. And so we want to qualify the realtor. And the way to do that is that we are having a conversation with this person and asking some questions here. Number one, are they productive to work with? And that means, do they have really like a good, productive, positive attitude? Yes or no? That's one of the questions. Number two, can we build enough rapport where they are going to give us information, which is called discovery? See, my job when I get to know somebody for the first time is to figure out, can I have a productive conversation with this person? Can I get a level of discovery with this person, which means the facts that I need to do my job, which is make a solid offer? And then number three, and probably a very positive side of this, is do we have common empathy? And so one of my approaches is I take a very empathetic approach to buying real estate. I don't want people to lose money, and I don't want people to lose their house. I also did not make the decision to buy their house, and I did not make the decision to buy it for the price that they did. And so we didn't create the problem. We are simply here as participants in a free market to make offers. That's really our objective. And so how do we deal with this intelligently? Well, as we're moving forward on this conversation with empathy, it's very important that you feel a very reasonable level of rapport with this agent. If you have a reasonable level of rapport, I try to score mine from 1 to 10. 10 being excellent rapport, and then number 1 being very poor rapport. I like to have excellent rapport because in my mindset, I'm going to either make a friend and or get a deal. I want this and I want this. What I don't want to do is I don't want to just get a deal, because the truth is I won't get a deal without making a friend. And so I don't want to alienate the friend in hopes of the deal, which is what a lot of people do. A lot of people sabotage the relationships and they use strategies to try to get the deal, and they become extremely transactional. And that is the wrong play. The right play is to become more relational in your conversation. And you do that by saying, what does the seller need? What does the realtor need? How can I be of really immense value in this transaction? And how do I make this thing low stress, low anxiety, like to the point? Sellers want solutions, okay? So the first thing we have to do is we have to make a friend. We have to build rapport. If you build rapport, after we've done that, then we can get to the seller's motivation. Oftentimes, a big mistake I'm seeing with people calling, they say things that are relevant but badly timed. Like they pick up the phone like, hi, I'm John, I'm buying houses. Hey, what's the seller's motivation, right? How motivated is the seller? How desperate is your person? Those are horrible ways of doing that. That's just not how you anchor that. We want to say, hey, I'm empathetic. I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm sorry the property's not selling. It seems like it's a pretty stressful situation. Hey, listen, whether or not I buy the property, I just want to let you know I'm just one person trying to help another person. So thank you for sharing whatever information you're willing to. And thank you for putting yourself in a position to try to help this seller. We're all people trying to help people, as my friend Coach AZ would say. Build that rapport, and then you can discover motivation. If you go to the motivation too quickly and you start to get rejection, you have failed to build enough rapport. It's as simple as that. You have failed to engage and have a real conversation. Once you have finally crossed over the motivation hurdle and you understand that you have rapport and you know why they're selling, then you can get to price. And price is not a number, my friends. Price is a series of questions that leads to a range of options. Because where we fail to understand the negotiation business is that price is only one variable. Another powerful variable in the game of real estate is called terms. And so when you negotiate price versus terms, you have to understand the tools that are in your belt. Price is the hammer. The terms would be perhaps the table saw. Which tool are you going to use? Or perhaps the screwdriver and the hammer. Which tools? And so when you just throw price at people, you're just hammering down on the problem, on the pain, and sometimes price will work. Oftentimes we have to say, well, I'm interested in selling. However, I'm going to need a couple of things first. So let's talk about this briefly on how you can position yourself. When you drop, let's just say the asking price is $500,000. You build rapport, you have price discovery, you understand the motivation, and then what we like to do is we like to say, hi, I'm an investor. Always establish your intention. You want to make sure that the seller or agent does not expect you to be a consumer. You are not buying this to move into. You're not buying this because your family needs a home. You're buying this because you are an investor. But unfortunately, investors have a bad reputation for not closing. And so it's important that you're not an investor in the general sense, but you're one with a high degree of integrity, confidence, and ability. Those are super important. Once you establish your intention, and after you build your relationship, then we have to do what's called the price anchor. And the price anchor is that uncomfortable thing that people don't want to do. Remember, we don't determine what a seller pays for a property. We only determine what we buy it for. And so a price anchor, typically in our world, depending on the market condition, is usually about 70% of the fair market value. And so in this case, the price anchor would be $350,000. In most circumstances, let's just say 90% of circumstances or more, you're going to get an absolute no. This is called go for the no. We want the no. We want the uncomfortable no. A lot of new investors get really hung up on getting the no, and so they sabotage the yes. We have to get a no. If you got a yes, you've overpaid. It's as simple as that logic. If you got an instant price acceptance, mostly likely you overpaid. When they reject your price anchor of $350,000, you're going to ask them the next question, which is, what is the discount you are willing to go, or how low can you go? How low can you go will reveal the range. And so from 500, they might say to you, well, we're willing to take 450,000. And so what you've accomplished in the conversation is you've discovered the first initial price adjustment. So this is the asking price. This is what we call the willing price, right? Right off the bat, we have asking and willing. And so they're willing to take 450 in the first round, and you're at 5, and you've offered 350. And so now, the one last piece before we move on, very important. Now is when you introduce what we call the conditional offer. And the conditional offer does the following. It allows you to increase price, but it will install a series of terms for you, like home inspection and or financing. And it'll install a bunch of conditions, which now give you rights to the property without having the obligations. And so real estate really is about terms and negotiations and sales. And so I'll say this last piece as we conclude this section of our short-term teaching. Be mindful, be effective, be clear, be hungry, and be humble.